Okay, so we're recording. Welcome everybody to the June 22nd ANC meeting, ANC3C meeting. Rachel, could you let us know if we have quorum?
Yes, there is quorum.
Great, and could you verify notice?
Yes, notice has been sent to the listservs and posted on our website.
Great, thank you so much. So I've pasted the agenda in the chat. Commissioners, if you want to take a look at that, and if we're ready to approve the agenda or if there are any proposed amendments to it.
Chair Finley, can I propose an amendment?
Of course.
I would like to propose that we move Commission Business 4, consideration of a resolution regarding the installation of protected bridge barriers on William Howard Taft Bridge and Connecticut Avenue Bridge, aka Klingle Valley Bridge, to the consent calendar. The commissioners have had a chance to read this, and I think Commissioner Pagets took feedback there too. So I would like to move it to the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Okay. So that we'll move that. And are there any other amendments to the agenda, commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Are there any objections to the agenda? Okay, and we are moving forward. Everything on the approval agenda, which is just the resolution Commissioner Siddiqui just mentioned, that is passed. And now we move to announcements. Commissioners, are there any announcements? Okay. Now
I'll make the announcement about the Community Engagement and Grants Committee meeting that's scheduled for next Tuesday, June 28th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. I believe it's available on the listservs, the links, and our website. We have two items on the agenda. One is a $3,000 grant for the Ward 3 food pantry, Feed the Family, and another one is $3,500 for the Cleveland Park Main Streets District Bridges to help support small businesses on the Cleveland Park Main Street. So that's next week.
Thank you, Commissioner Pagets. Okay, we will move to Community Forum. This is the part of our agenda where members of the public are invited to ask questions, raise concerns about issues that are not otherwise on the agenda, or if there's any local organization that wants to give us a quick update.
So I wanted to go, if I can go first with this one too, please.
Sure, go for it.
So to explain what happened with the consent calendar, for those, I know there's quite a number of folks that were joining this to support the suicide barrier resolution. Since we moved it to consent, anything on consent passes. So thank you for all who joined. And I'd like to take a moment to give Dr. Chelsea Van Toff opportunity to speak. She reached out to me a couple of months ago. Her partner jumped off the Taft Bridge on April 13th. She would like something good to come from losing him, and she did the research. The Taft Bridge, or the Ellington Bridge adjacent, had no barrier installed until 1986, which just decreased the average number of suicides on that bridge from 4 a year to 0. The Taft Bridge has had an average of 2 suicides per year. 1 is too many, and something can and must be done. This is the first step in that process. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Chelsea, who would like to say a few things and give her the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Janelle. Chelsea, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Janelle. I'm very happy to hear that it's on the consent calendar and that this is going to be moving forward. A lot of what you just said about the statistics and everything I was going to get into, but in light of the movement, I did lose Peter to the Taft Bridge, and every day I think about whether he would still be here if not for the halting of construction of a suicide barrier on the Taft Bridge. That was the decision of Mayor Barry back in 1987. And I want to be the last one to wonder that about a loved one who was struggling. Sorry, I'm a little overwhelmed. I appreciate everyone who was, who is in Peter and Mai's lives that came out to support this. And I'm just very happy that we're moving forward with this. It's if anything can come from the pain of losing someone this way, it can be that no one else has to share this pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
No, thank you very much for raising the awareness of this and helping to move this forward in Peter's memory and all the memories of the folks that also lost loved ones. So thank you. Thank you for your brave words.
So we're actually, I just want to return to the agenda for a second. I apologize, commissioners. I misspoke when I said that the only item on it was on the consent agenda was the consideration of the resolution that was just moved. We also have a BZA application for 3212 Garfield Street, a BZA application for 2804 34th Place, DDOT public space application for 3839 Macomb, and a resolution requesting a traffic safety investigation, installation of a hawk signal and or other pedestrian measures on Reno Road with the intersection with Rodman. So if there's, just to go back to make sure that all commissioners are clear that that's what the consent calendar includes. We're all good. Okay, no objections. Moving forward to commission business. We have a presentation by DDOT to provide an update today on the Connecticut Avenue Northwest Multimodal and Safety Transportation Project, or Safety Project Study. Who do we have from DDOT this evening? Can you use the raise hand feature so we can make sure you're able to join? Okay.
You can type in the chat. That's an option.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's clapping. Unfortunately, it's hard. Oh, Cynthia Lynn is here. I'm going to make her co-host.
Great. Thank you.
Actually, I can't make her co-host because I myself am a host. I think Commissioner Packets might have to do it. So Cynthia Lynn.
Okay, on it. Okay.
Great, can everyone hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. So do we have a limit on the presentation? I just was wondering, it wasn't on the agenda in terms of how long to present. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
If you could keep it to about 10 minutes, I think that'd be great because we've got kind of crowded agenda this evening.
Okay, no problem. So sorry, my video is not working, but hopefully you can all see my screen. My name is Cynthia Lynn. I'm with the District Department of Transportation. I am the Deputy Project Manager for the Connecticut Avenue Reversible Lane and Multimodal Safety Project. Ed Stoloff is actually in the other ANC meeting tonight presenting the same presentation, just giving folks an update on the upcoming public meeting. And that's really our objective in being here tonight, is really to meet with folks, give you a quick briefing of the agenda for the meeting happening next week.
Cynthia, just your screen sharing doesn't show us anything as far as I can tell. I'm not sure if that's intentional at this point.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. So like I said, we're meeting with different ANC members over the last couple nights to kind of go through what the agenda would be for the public meeting coming up next week. We're hoping that the ANC can help to distribute this meeting notice, posters, really to get the word out to folks about the upcoming public meeting next week, which is both going to be virtual and in person. So tonight we're not going to be reviewing the specific concept design in detail at all, but we will send over this presentation if you do want to share with others. The meeting itself, both the virtual and the in-person, will be going through each of the role maps. So the virtual meeting will kind of walk through each slide, and then at the public meeting we will actually have tables with maps and people staffing them from DDOT and the consultant team, so we can kind of walk through the details of each. So here are some of the logistics. The virtual public meeting will be happening on Tuesday, the 28th of June. And here is the meeting link and the password. It will be held in the morning from 9 to 11 a.m. So that will be our virtual option. The in-person option will be happening on Wednesday, the 29th, from 6 to 8 p.m. And we will be hosting it in person at UDC's ballroom on the 3rd floor within the Student Center building. And below here is also the link to the official public meeting notice. So we're hoping that we can get the word out. We've had a chance to drop some flyers around the corridor, and hoping that the ANC and people on the call today can advertise this to your constituents. So in terms of the public meeting objective, we're really just providing an update to the public on the status of the project. We haven't met in quite a while. It's really also to walk through this first iteration of the concept design. And just kind of as a reminder, we did move forward with the concept C, which does remove the reversible lane and adds a protected bike lane on both sides of the street, as well as other pedestrian facilities and safety measures along the corridor. We will be reviewing the corridor map starting from the south of the study area at Calvert Street, moving north to Legation. And really, it's also to provide the public with kind of updates on the next steps for the project as we advance from concept to preliminary design, final design, and construction. And like we said before, the mayor and DDOT made the decision on December 15th, 2021 to select concept C. And this really allows DDOT to be going through the next steps of the planning process. So going from planning and concept design through design, procurement, and environmental documentation. Those are kind of our next steps. The mayor has also requested that we do work with the Office of Racial Equity to conduct what we're calling a racial equity impact analysis. So it's really to look at potential impacts on populations within the corridor and around the district based on the design alternative. And we are in the midst of doing that analysis and should have essentially recommendations and a memo from that analysis later on in the summer, which we can share. So as in terms of the project itself, the goal has always been to support the district's commitment to Vision Zero, which really aims to eliminate traffic deaths, fatalities, and serious injuries by 2024. Like the title says, it is removing the reversible lane, but it is a multimodal project in the sense that although there has been focus on the bike lanes, there are other safety and access improvements that are being built along the corridor. So we are removing the reversible lane. We are adding protected bike lanes on both the east and west sides of the street. There are going to be opportunities to add left and right turn lanes to kind of maintain the necessary traffic capacity where it's needed. We can talk about this a little bit more. We have reduced the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour along the corridor. There are opportunities for pedestrian safety design, such as pedestrian refuges, curb extensions, really realigning some of the intersections where it's possible. Another part of this is also looking at opportunities to understand the connectivity of all the bus stops along the corridor and making recommendations on where we could be consolidating, where we could be shifting, and also adding bus platforms to help with bus reliability and the ability for buses to, traverse the corridor more without having to pull over as much as often during rush hour, et cetera. We'll also look at hawk signals, potentials for that, as well as no turn on red locations along the corridor. Just a reminder, this is concept C, and this shows a cross section. So we are, as part of this design, removing the reversible lane. In each direction, there will be 2 northbound and 2 southbound travel lanes at all times of the day, both during the peak and off-peak hours. There will be a one-way protected bike lane on both the east and west sides, and left turn lanes and parking and loading lanes in areas where we will be looking at commercial areas. Commercial areas will be having either parking and loading lanes, and we will be working with the community over the next couple of months to determine which side of the street essentially that will be on. But the bike lane will be continuous through these commercial areas, although parking will be accommodated in some capacity within these commercial areas. So just to give an update on our work since January of 2022, we have had a chance to go out and remove the signs and have begun and almost completed the pavement marking eradication. So the reversible lane signage removal was, the static signs were removed back in March 2022, and the electric signs, the blackout signs, are planned to be removed during the construction phase of the project, so likely in the next 2 years or so. The eradication of the reversible lane pavement marking started back in April, and we are nearing the end of that, so estimated to complete that by the end of June 2022. We have also issued a notice of intent, which was distributed to a number of ANCs on March 24th, 2022. There was a 10-day comment period conducted, and it has been closed at this point. So sign replacement was completed, is going to be complete by the end of summer 2022. And this was definitely one of the recommendations that we saw come out of the study that we could implement in the short term. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback from this recommendation. Hopefully that does show some signs of improvement along the corridor. In terms of the racial equity impact analysis, like we talked about before, we are working with the Office of Racial Equity on this. We're expecting results later this summer, and it's really to minimize inequities for a number of different stakeholders along the corridor, specifically those person of color, disabilities, older persons, and others. And I think we will be working with the office closely to make sure that there are no disproportionate impacts due to the recommendations from Concept C. In terms of other items that we're working on, we are in the middle of preparing schedules for the rest of the project. We are identifying funding for construction, working on scopes of work for procurement. We are developing the first iteration of the concept plans. And in the meantime, we have been meeting with the project's Citizens Advisory Committee and interagency groups, which have been a kind of culmination between like different DDOT subject matter experts and sister agencies and federal agencies such as NPS that have a stake in the corridor itself. So in terms of immediate next steps from the summer through the winter, we will be refining the concepts plans prior to starting the design phase, which is preliminary and final design. We'll be working very closely with DDOT folks, with interagency folks, with our CAC, and also use this public meeting as an opportunity to refine some of the specific details when it comes to design elements. And part of that will include some of these transit improvements that we just talked about before. Per the request during last year's meeting, lots of community members did ask DDOT to conduct a traffic calming review. So we will be reviewing and identifying traffic issues that may lend themselves to solutions based on some of the observations of neighborhood spillover traffic, speeding, and really non-compliance with traffic control devices. So we'll be kind of kicking that off, and some sample locations that we've heard and that we will be looking into are listed here. So Cherry Chase Parkway, Nevada Avenue, Utah, Broad Branch, and a number of other locations. Parking and loading is one of the hot button issues that we will definitely be engaging stakeholders and ANCs on throughout the corridor. So there are 11 when you all attend the public meeting, there are 11 corridor section maps that are broken out, and we will be setting up what we're essentially calling a mini task force that are comprised of ANC single member districts, stakeholders on that section of the corridor. And really the goal is to understand what are some of the ongoing issues and challenges that, you know, this design may impose, and or ongoing existing challenges that are happening that, you know, you see on a daily basis that we necessarily do not. So being able to understand the existing condition in a little bit more detail, going out and walking the corridor with folks and really getting a better lens and hand on, you know, what are some of the limitations right now. So some of the toolkit items that we'll be working on these task force with are really understanding, are there opportunities to add parking, et cetera, on side streets? Maybe there's changes in our PP designations for the parking that will be maintained on Connecticut Avenue. Are there changes in how we want to dictate how long people can park there for, or maybe changing some of these into more like short-term, high turnover spaces that can really meet the needs of the different businesses and or residents that live along that section. We also will be exploring the opportunity to extend the study area. So originally our project looked at Connecticut Avenue from Calvert all the way to Eradication. And we have had some suggestions from the public to really look at this more holistically. And originally this study area was identified because that was the extent of the reversible lane. So it really ends at Eradication. But what we're going to be doing in the next 6 months is on this last section up to Chevy Chase Circle, from Legation to Chevy Chase Circle, is really looking at the same due diligence that we've done with the other section of Connecticut Avenue and the prior studies. So looking at traffic impacts, looking at speed, looking at safety, analyzing parking and other kind of environmental data that is needed to document. And then at that point, we will make the recommendation whether or not to include this section of Connecticut Avenue within the extension of the project. And we will be engaging the community in this conversation as we continue to analyze this section. And then so between June 2022 and January 23, we will continue design procurement. This just kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of a calendar outlook. So within the next 6 months, we just talked about refining the concept, looking at traffic, doing those mini focus groups for parking and curbside uses, going through for design procurement, and then in the next next 3 calendar years, really refining the preliminary and final design, construction, procurement, and then construction itself. So here's just our contact information, just to give you a little bit of an idea of who's kind of responsible for each. So Ed is the project manager for the planning and concept phase. I'm the deputy project manager, and Christian and Jamie are assisting on the project. Christian is the community engagement specialist for this board. When we do transition this from concept to design, IPMD, which is our infrastructure project management division, will be taking that over. So we will do this like handoff, but we will still maintain kind of coordination with the community and conversations as needed. Yvonne Thalwell and Gourmet Tess Michael will be the kind of leads for the preliminary design and construction phases of the project. And on the right-hand side is just our consultants and our project email and website.
Thank you, Cynthia. Could you put the link you mentioned earlier that you'd want the commission to share with folks? Could you throw that in the chat now?
Yes, I think it's just the website,
Okay.
but I will at least dump that in, and then if I find another one, I can send that over.
And does the website have a link to the slides as well?
Not yet. We will be uploading this, I think, after this meeting, or we can send it to you. Oh, sorry. We will be uploading this in the next day or so, I think.
So,
Okay, that's great. If you can let us know when it's uploaded, because people are asking for it.
Okay.
Hey, Cynthia, too, I just wanted to let you know that we also emailed them to the chairman as well. So They do have a copy of the presentation.
Okay, is that Charlotte?
Yes, this
Okay.
is Charlotte,
I
yeah.
can't see screen, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll open up for commissioner questions first. Anybody chomping at the bit? Nancy, Commissioner McWood.
Thank you. Cynthia, I have two quick questions. You mentioned during the presentation that that there was a notice of intent. Was that on signs that were going to be accompanying this? I didn't catch what the NOI was for.
Yeah, so also just as a heads up, Ed Storloff is on the call now. So Ed, feel free to chime in. We can also hand off if necessary, but the notice of intent was for the speed limits. So it was reducing the speed from 30 to 25.
Okay, thank you. The second question I had is the traffic calming review that you're going to be undertaking. Have all of the locations been determined? And if so, can we get a list of those?
So we have not determined any locations. I think the list that I put up was just a sample based on our review or observations or just things that we've heard from the community. I think it'll be a much more broader sweep of understanding, kind of looking back on comments that we've heard, but also whatever you all have in terms of locations, specific instances, we're happy to take a look at that as well. So I think it's a very high level review, but we'll be narrowing that down through the next couple months or so.
And I have some locations to recommend to you. So I would just get in touch with you or with Ed directly. Is that the process?
Yeah, you are welcome to email Ed and myself and we can coordinate.
And just to make sure I understand, what you're going to be doing in the short term is evaluating what the current conditions are?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Cynthia, I've got a couple questions. You mentioned the sort of mini task forces with SMD representatives. What, when would those meetings be? When would those task forces be formed?
I might shift that over to Ed. I think within the next couple of months, I think we would start having those conversations. Probably definitely after the first public meeting.
Yeah, hey Cynthia. Yeah, we are almost set to have a consultant come on board to help us with that, and so I'm hoping, yeah, August, September. It might be better in September, given that there's a lot of vacations and whatnot. So maybe that's a good thing to target early September.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just because if the timing were later, some of the single member district boundaries will be changing.
Yeah.
Okay, and another question I have is during this construction, sort of the construction that's been going on so far, Porter and Connecticut has had the intersection of Porter and Connecticut, specifically on the east side of Connecticut on Porter, has had the double yellow lines basically torn up and repaved with tar or asphalt, but it's not. There's no lines there. So in the left turn only lane going on to Quebec is invisible. So it's causing some pedestrian safety issues and some traffic safety issues. I was wondering if there's a temporary fix, if that's just, spray paint or something, or is there a temporary signs on the road thing to fix that to make it a bit safer?
I think we need to talk to our project manager there, Yvonne Thelwell, who's leading that project. So we can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you. And could you just CC me when you do that? Thanks, Ed. And then let's see the other question. Nope, I guess that's it. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Reba. You're muted, Commissioner Reba.
Thank you for that. First off, I want to thank Cynthia and Ed for being here this evening to give and provide this update. And also thank you for staying on for our second presentation this evening. I wanted to ask, what is the possibility to remove the light status on the service lane in Cleveland Park. It doesn't look like, based on community input, that the service lane is going to be reopened. It's been closed during the pandemic, but currently it is holding up traffic northbound and southbound on Connecticut, as well as east and west at that intersection, because all parties currently have to wait for the traffic light of the service lane to go through its cycle. So we're all sitting there waiting for that light to finish its cycle for no traffic that's actually in the service lane. So is that something that we could currently address?
So Commissioner Reba, just a little background, Cassandra Hetherington and I both brought that to DDOT's attention a few months ago, and we're hoping it would help speed up traffic, but it seemed to be a timing issue, but I'll let DDOT, of course, they're the experts, I'll let them answer.
Well, thank you. And I knew that you had, but I wanted to see where it was in the process because nothing had been done. And I like to understand if that's part of your current evaluation of current conditions and part of your traffic calming measures, but I don't think that it impacts what we're trying to do moving forward with this study and execution, because now there's a light that doesn't service anything and it's just holding everybody up. So I'll be quiet and allow you to answer. So thank you.
I would say that this is a question for Yvonne Thelwell, since she's leading that issue. We'll definitely bring that to Yvonne's attention and copy you, Lee, and Bo as well.
Okay.
And I would say that it's not part of our traffic calming effort. Traffic calming is really, you all mentioned that there was some current issues with regard to residential streets and collectors, and perhaps through traffic or people not obeying traffic signs or traffic control devices. And that's what the traffic calming study or basically we'll go out and look and see, is there a problem on those kinds of streets and what are the potential solutions? And so that's different than this immediate question that you raised.
Right. I just didn't know where it fell within your study and where it fell. So thank you for that. It's just something that currently needs to be addressed. And thank you for moving forward with the reversible lanes and remarking Connecticut Avenue. I think anybody that travels the corridor or lives and works and plays along the corridor, I know they've all seen it, but you really have moved it expeditiously. And it's just really nice to see all of this coming to fruition. So thank you to you and your team for all your efforts.
Ed, could you, when you contact Yvonne?
Nancy, you're muted. Commissioner McCoy, you're still muted.
Doesn't want to unmute me. There I go.
There you go.
Sorry. Ed, when you email Yvonne about this, could you copy all the 3C commissioners? Because we all have an interest in it. Thank you.
Sure.
To save us all time, I remember the answer is that because there's a pedestrian crossing there, they can't change the light because there's they said it was a safety issue of crossing there, but we can wait for the answer again. But that, I think that's going to be the reason.
Okay, commissioners, any further questions? We'll move it to public questions. All right, folks, if you have a question, please use the raise hand feature. And then when we'll call on you and ask you to unmute. And the raise hand feature is under, if you see the smiley face with the plus sign on it, it's reactions. You click that and you can choose raise hand. All righty. Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right, thank you very much, DDOT, for coming. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Charlotte. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. So the next item is, Commissioner Reba, did you want to tee this one up?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, gonna ask for everybody's patience during this next conversation. And again, thank you, Cynthia and Ed, for staying on this call. We're now going to have a presentation by the National Zoo with participants from MPD, DDOT, DPW, Traffic Enforcement, and DOEE regarding the synchronization of traffic lights and the timing of those lights at the National Zoo parking entrance and at the Kennedy Warren garage entrance, as well as have a little discussion about idling of buses and parking issues along Connecticut Avenue. Let me say thank you to Amir from the mayor's office for helping to bring this meeting to fruition. It was really a team effort with both of us reaching out to all parties. And I just want to thank everybody from the zoo, DDOT, DPW, MPD, and DOE for being here. I know it's a lot of people on one call for one discussion, but this is about full transparency. Each of the parties play a role in correcting the issues at hand, and each of you play a role in the in what's currently going on and what really needs to be resolved at the at this intersection. I will share with the residents that are on this call from the Kennedy Warren and perhaps beyond. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to think that part of DDOT's presentation this evening will address a lot of your concerns, not only at the zoo in Kennedy Warren, but up and down the corridor. You know, one of the things that we discussed at a recent on-site visit with the mayor's office and the Kennedy Warren and management and their residents was to potentially have a DDOT traffic study done at these lights. I think this is a conversation that we should add to the evaluation of the corridor, as well as the traffic calming measures that DDOT is going to be looking at up and down the corridor during this next phase of the reversible lane and safety project. Obviously, we're not going to have a resolution tonight. I'd like to share what some of the concerns are, so each of the parties that are joining us this evening can address it and see what we can do to eradicate these issues, as well as what their roles may be during this next phase of the DDOT project, because there's such a calamity of errors at this intersection that it's really going to take everybody's participation. So with that being said, what has recently caused everybody to be invited tonight was twofold. One, recent idling of buses along Connecticut Avenue, tour buses parking in the crosswalk at the zoo, on the side of both the zoo and the side of the commercial strip where 7-Eleven and Frozen Yo is, or 7-Eleven used to be. There are still individuals dropping off Uber and Lyft vehicles, dropping off individuals in the crosswalk, and then making a U-turn once the light changes. And they'll U-turn to go either to the back uptown or downtown. There are idling of buses in front of the National Zoo, as well as on the side of 3000 Connecticut Avenue for extended period of times, and actually extended beyond what the law requires them. There was a major accident at the entrance to the National Zoo parking entrance, adjacent to the Kennedy Warren exit garage, where a car turning into the Kennedy Warren garage ended up on top of another vehicle that was traveling northbound in the curb lane on Connecticut Avenue. So there are a number of things going on that need to be addressed. And if everyone will bear with me, what I'd like to address currently is the idling of buses and the parking of buses in the crosswalk, as well as in commercial spaces where there are meters, where they are not paying to park in these spots. They're just sitting, idling, and waiting for their groups to come out. If I may, this is in really no particular order, but if you'll indulge me, I'd like to just go through the list and begin with Pamela from the National Zoo, and then we'll work our way down to DPW, Traffic Enforcement, to see if they can increase their visibility in the neighborhood, and see if there's some common synergies that we can develop this evening where the zoo, based on forecasting of their visitors, would be able to reach out to our DC agencies on these days where there'll be high volume. So these agencies would know what days and when to look out for these trouble situations. I'd like to begin with the National Zoo, and Pamela, thank you for being here this evening and for joining us. So I'm going to have you unmute and share what you can share regarding buses coming onto the property. I know there was a discussion at one point having a drop off and pickup on the property itself. I know that is not always a fail-safe system or plan, because buses will tend to drop off where they want, what's convenient for them. But I'll go ahead and let you present and share your findings and what you can share with us. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me this evening, everybody. Where to begin exactly? Pre-COVID, we had a certain traffic pattern and policies in place, and COVID changed all of that for us because we have now moved to a free pass, but a ticketing system, so that we can have a much better handle on the amount of people coming into the zoo. And we strongly encourage everyone to pay for their parking, buy a parking pass in advance so we can clearly monitor that. And for our buses, what we do now is in our, what I would call our off season, it's from September through Memorial Day, we have a bus parking reservation system. And so anybody can access that online and make their bus parking reservation. We cannot accommodate buses during our busier season, which is Memorial Day through September. And that is because we just have too many visitors, too many cars in the zoo. So what we have seen is, with this new traffic pattern, what that has decreased is a horrible backup and congestion, either out the back of the zoo or primarily on Connecticut Avenue. All of you who live in this area know that we had a serious problem with that. And with this paid parking now that you have to do in advance, you either get parking or you don't, and you come another day. So consequently, we can accommodate and we provide some bus parking, but we no longer provide sort of a free-for-all. That isn't quite the way I want to say it. You know, our situation is that it's free to come to the zoo. Camps, school groups, tour buses, everybody makes a decision to come to the zoo, which is great, but they don't inform us of this in advance. We rarely know that, you know, these large groups are coming. And prior to our pass and ticketing process, we really had no idea. So that caused a huge backup and congestion problem for us, because any given day, a whole series of buses would arrive and we couldn't do anything for them or with them, and nowhere to go. So what we have now is much more, I would say, orderly, and we're able to manage all the visitors coming into the zoo. We're able to move them through the zoo and into the parking lots much more efficiently. Part of the other problem that was caused by this congestion, which was buses and cars, is that we couldn't move security or safety vehicles through and up and down North Road, because many of you know we only have that one road on the sort of the perimeter of the zoo from Connecticut Avenue down to the bottom. So this has really improved our safety and security issues. It's improved our congestion. It's improved our transportation. And by all accounts, mostly by the feedback we have, everyone seems to be very, very happy that we've sort of eliminated that congestion on Connecticut Avenue. What buses can do is there is a bus drop-off area designated for them on Connecticut Avenue. I understand that if several buses arrive all at once, if we know of bus reservations, we will send someone out there to help and try and manage that. But we are aware that some buses drop off their visitors farther up Connecticut Avenue. They stay, they remain, they idle, and they do all those things. If they are doing that anywhere near our premises, we have the ability, we have a staff person at that Connecticut Avenue vehicle entrance, and we can go and address that with that bus driver and say, you know, according to DC law, and I think my colleague here who, I think I saw Lieutenant, somebody was present, someone from MPD can speak to those rules much better than I can as to what is permissible and what is not permissible. You know, it's regretful that some bus drivers are making very poor choices and where they stop. And, you know, all I can say is that if we have any ability to, if we witness something, we can certainly take action. But other than that, we're reliant that people follow the traffic laws and adhere to them like everybody else. Lee Bryan, I don't, you know, is there anything else that you and I've discussed that I'm forgetting to mention? I'm trying to think of.
No, but if I may ask you, and thank you for sharing this information. I think it brings some clarity to where we were at pre-pandemic and where we are now. Again, you know, I kind of chuckled when you said, where do I begin? Because I think it's how many of us feel every season, because there's no soundproof solution at this point. It's something that we've become accustomed to. And obviously something that you and I, over the years that we've been working together, that we just need to address and refresh every year. Let me ask you, because one of my commissioners approached one of the buses that were idling in recent weeks, and they were met with some unpleasant comments. What I'd like to ask you is, the colleague of yours that sits at the gated entrance of the National Zoo, and he sits in a blue car. I see him every day. Are you recommending that if there are buses idling, the best solution would be to approach that individual at the gate and have them speak with your buses?
Well, we don't have any authority. I mean,
Okay.
that's an MPD scenario. So we don't have any real authority with the buses on Connecticut Avenue. What we're trying to do is the best we can to maneuver them. We do have one of our security officers, one of the police officers at the gate when the gate is closed. Like you probably, you know, we have a lot of people that come into the zoo, you know, is starting at 5:30 in the morning. So the gate is monitored at that time. The gate opens at 8 o'clock. And then what we do is varying, you know, depending on visitation projection. We had some beautiful, we had a recent very beautiful weekend, right? So at 8 o'clock, we have guest services person right out there at Connecticut Avenue to help facilitate cars coming in or cars departing. So we'll have guest services people there, but we don't have any authority, and we don't have extra people to sort of leave, you know, if that priority has to be is the what's happening exactly at that gate. Now, an idling bus blocking or in our designated bus drop-off place on Connecticut Avenue, yeah, that's pretty close. But again, we don't really have any authority. So that's part of the problem is this, you know, it's the intersection. It's the intersection of authority and people and a real intersection. So, you know, maybe my MPD colleague can speak to that.
Okay, and that's why everybody's here today. But let me ask you this, for those buses that park to drop off in your bus drop-off area, who is monitoring those buses in the bus drop-off area to ensure that they're moving along, A, and B, that they are not idling? So are you sharing that you have no jurisdiction over the bus drop-off areas as well? And I'm just asking so
Yeah,
everybody on the call can hear the response.
Yeah, so we don't really have jurisdiction because it's Connecticut Avenue. And so I would say we do not have someone standing there all day long. That's not possible for us with our staffing scenario. What my colleagues in park operations look at is the reservations, so they can tell to some degree, oh my gosh, X amount of buses are coming at this time. That could be a little bit of a chaotic scenario. Let's send somebody up there. So they're what I know is that they're monitoring that on a daily basis. And they can look and see, okay, we may have some congestion. Let's get somebody up there just to make sure things move as smoothly as possible.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask my fellow Commissioner Paget if she wanted to share any of her current and recent experiences before we move on to DPW, traffic enforcement. Because I'd like to, I kind of like DDOT, DPW, MPD to get a handle on what's occurring so they know better how to manage it. And then I want, obviously, DOEE to step in to see how they can assist with these idling buses. So, Commissioner?
Yeah, I think you're really, covering the problem quite well. It's just looking for a solution. It's kind of necessary. It is really, like, I wait for the L2 in front of where these buses are idling, and my L2 bus just goes right by me, and I'm a resident of the district, and I don't find that to be very fair for my needs. And I think there needs to be a balance here between getting people in and out of the zoo, which I totally understand, and it's great and all of that, but like also realizing that people do live and need to go other places from there. So yeah, it would be great to find a solution that somewhat works for all. I know nothing's perfect. Thank you, by the way, Commissioner Reba, for organizing all this.
Thank you. I'd like to call on DPW traffic enforcement. And when you, there's Celeste Duffy. Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Always good to see you. So how can you help us? And what can you do to bring some more visibility to the zoo entrance for monitoring and for resolution of these issues?
Okay, well, thank you so much for asking me to come tonight and have someone from DPW be on the call. So as you know, I'm sure many of the commissioners know that we are in charge of handling any kind of parking issue that happens in public space. So most of these issues in terms of idling buses is really our jurisdiction. And we will not hide from that. That squarely needs to be put on us. So what the issue is here is this. The difference between the district's definition of what is idling as opposed to pick up and drop off. Ideally, I would assume we want people to visit the zoo. We want people to be able to enjoy the zoo and to get off a bus and then quickly be able to resume to get back on the bus. I don't think anybody is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that anybody is saying that when we're uncomfortable with unloading and loading, it's the idling that's the issue. It's the staying the 2 to 3 to 4, however many hours or minutes that they're staying with the bus turned on. That really is the issue. So it's the decision for the parking enforcement officer who covers that beat to try and understand the difference between pickup and drop off as opposed to idling. Because those two things may not be the same and probably don't have the same deference in the law. We know the district has an idling law, a prohibition against idling. What I'm not sure, and I can find out for you, is if there is a loading, a pickup and drop off distinction that we can make sure that those parking officers that are covering that beat, if there's some way for them to tell the difference. And that may be, not so simply, but that may just be the issue, is figuring out what the difference is between people loading and picking up as opposed to those buses that have been just idling and standing.
I mean, I guess another issue I want to bring up then with the picking up and the dropping off, it's still illegal in front of a bus stop and in a crosswalk. It doesn't matter, like, if they're there picking up and dropping off, if they are blocking a crosswalk or blocking a bus stop, it's like, that's a hard and fast, like, you're breaking the rule, right?
No, that's correct.
Okay, because they're definitely doing that.
All right, that's correct. And then the only issue that would be to make sure that the parking enforcement officer is there at that moment. But that you're correct that that's not prohibited. I'm sorry, that's not allowed.
And Celeste, it really is obvious to any of us to identify when a bus is loading or unloading versus just sitting there. I have taken many measures to literally stop my day, whether I'm going to work, coming from work, going to dinner, coming from dinner, lunch, whatever it may be, an errand, to actually stop and monitor and to see what's going on. And if I stop and sit there for 2-3 minutes and I see no one getting on or off a bus, I think that's a clear distinction between idling and loading. And what I'd like to see, being that we're just getting ready to hit the busy season at the zoo, and if we're all working together for Vision Zero, and you've just heard a presentation on from DDOT regarding what we're doing with the reversible lane and the calming measures and the speed limit, can we get a commitment from DPW traffic enforcement to have someone posted at the National Zoo, or at least monitor the Connecticut Avenue corridor from the Woodley Park Metro up to the Cleveland Park Commercial District? Because one of the things that I find very frustrating as a third-generation Washingtonian and as a resident of Woodley Park for 30 years is to see all of these buses. And I know that some of these issues are going to be resolved during this next phase of the presentation we just heard, because there's going to be very limited places for buses to park. But I have a real pet peeve when buses park and don't pay the meter and don't pay. That's lost revenue for this city. That is, who knows what that amount is, because none of them pay. We know they don't pay. You can get out of your car and walk up and down the corridor and you see no paid sticker on their windshield. And you could sit there and watch them pull up. They don't pay. So there's a bigger issue here, not only with what we're discussing, but the lost revenue. And I think that's something important that your team would want to enforce and to help rectify.
Well, you're definitely correct. What we don't want is to be in any way a party to supporting the district's anti-idling law. So that's for sure. Now, whether or not your question, I believe, was, can you get a dedicated parking enforcement officer just at the zoo? I cannot tell you that tonight. I wish I could, but I can't. I'd actually have to go to the parking enforcement administrator and see if there's enough resources available to do that. However, what I can do, even if we couldn't do dedicated, maybe we could do enhanced monitoring. Now, I can just say, my guess, I'm not the parking enforcement administrator, but my guess is the likelihood that we could get someone to only drive from the metro to the zoo back and forth for an entire shift seems to me somewhat unlikely. Enhanced monitoring may be, in fact, something we could get, which is not that they would be confined only from the metro to the zoo entrance, but that maybe we could say they come in that area from the metro to the zoo entrance every 38 minutes or every 32 minutes or every 17 minutes. That may be something, enhanced monitoring, we could definitely do. And so if I can go back tomorrow after this meeting and ask what kind of enhanced monitoring program we could make available, because we're very aware that this is an issue.
Well, doesn't DPW have a Ward 3 liaison?
Okay, so DPW is a huge organization. They don't have a Ward 3 parking liaison. They have.
No, I know you don't have a parking liaison. And the reason I'm asking you this question is because of all the parties and residents that are on this call that aren't familiar with your operation, the traffic enforcement division that we're referencing, or the process. But I know that each agency has ward personnel that are out in the neighborhoods, looking at the neighborhoods, resolving issues, identifying issues, right?
All right, so that would be dependent upon what the issue is. So if you were to say we have a Ward 3 street and alley personnel, that's correct. We have a Ward 3 suite personnel, that's correct. We have Ward 3 parking enforcement persons, that's correct. But that's across the entire nearly 1,700 personnel agency divided in very specific areas.
Well, I guess I'm just surprised with all of those Ward 3 representatives from DPW in the neighborhood, why none of them have brought this to the attention of the parking enforcement administrator, as well as to the powers to be, because either they're not seeing what we see, or they're just not paying attention to what we see, or they're not addressing what we're discussing this evening.
And that can be possible, and I can get some data for that. So what I can do is find out in terms of the idling law, how many tickets or enforcement actions we have had with the park. Now, as you know, this is the beginning of the season, so most of the data may come from last year at this time, which is kind of an interesting year because of COVID. So there were a lot of suspensions, but I'm willing to work with you to see if we can narrow exactly what kind of data you want. I think we probably can provide it. But in general, there's not a Ward 3 person over everything in DPW.
Okay.
We don't have that. We have it by specific division and specific outcome.
Well, in the interest of time, before we move on to our next guest, I want to see if there's any other commissioners that have any specific questions to you and DPW in particular.
Commissioner McWood, please unmute.
Celeste, I think it's important that that everybody recognize that the idling law also allows buses to idle when the temperature either gets very cold or the temperature is very, very hot. And I don't remember what all the parameters are, but that's an issue. But I think that the really intractable problem here is that during the high season, during the tourist season, the zoo is not able to accommodate bus parking on site on their property. That means we've got an enhanced number of people who are coming, more buses coming, but they can't access the property for parking. So from DPW's perspective, where is it legal for these buses to park?
Okay, so I cannot tell you that because again, I'm not a parking enforcement expert. So I'd have to look at the sort of a map of the area and probably have someone else assist me with that. I don't know where the legal parking spots are for buses that are close to the park, which is why I say in most of these situations, there is some leniency for pick up and drop off. So if you're unloading and loading, generally there's some lenience for that. Because that's you're actively doing that. But if you just want to park for 45 minutes to an hour to 3 hours, that's a different scenario. And particularly if you're idling while you're doing that.
Well, I think we all understand pick up and drop off, but once all the passengers are out of the bus, drop off is over. And the driver then needs to go and find a legal parking space. I'm not aware of any in the neighborhood, any signed parking that is identified as bus parking. And I know on the local streets, buses are not allowed to park. So that really only leaves Connecticut Avenue. And I mean, no one wants the buses to be idling. No one wants them parking in crosswalks. We want a safe situation, but it seems we have created and we do go through this every year, and it's never been resolved. So I was curious from DPW's perspective, if you have identified some bus parking areas that are legal that the bus drivers could be directed to.
Not to my knowledge. I can't tell you by the zoo or anywhere else in the city. Now, that doesn't mean that that's correct. I can check that again, because there could be areas that I'm not aware of. But to my knowledge right now, I'm not aware of any lot or designated position or space where we say, hey, buses, once you've unloaded, come here. And then when you're ready to pick up again, go back to a specific designation. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Celeste, I just put the link in the chat because DDOT does have this document. And so that's where on our website, when people looking for specifically bus parking information, we reference this document in a couple places. So it may not be perfect. This is another larger city conversation.
No, but I'll check that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Celeste. Commissioner Reba, you said there was one more person who was going to speak, I think, on this issue?
No,
Okay.
we still have representatives from DOEE and MPD. What I'd like to do quickly is have our representative from DOEE now step forward, unmute, identify yourself, and see what we can do as a team and as a community to help you to rectify this. And Celeste, what would be helpful also is if we could have those Ward 3 representatives, particularly the parking enforcement. I'd like to be able to potentially speak with you offline or have you email me so I can share with the commission. So if we identify buses idling, parking for long periods of time, that we have a contact number to those DPW representatives in the field, and they can then swing by. I do understand they can't be everywhere at once, and they rely on our eyes and ears for their guidance and direction. So if there's someone that you can direct us to who's responsible for Ward 3, that phone number would be great as a point contact when things need to be addressed timely.
All right, so Commissioner Reba, first of all, it's good to see you.
Same.
Yeah, and I will absolutely have that in your inbox tomorrow morning.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Celeste, for being here this evening and really appreciate all the information you've shared.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hannah, you are up. Thank you for being here. And if you could share what your team does and the division that is responsible for these fumes and idling, please share. And again, thank you for being here.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting us to talk today, Commissioner Reba. So my name is Hannah Shanafi. I am Chief of the Compliance and Enforcement Branch in the Air Quality Division at DOEE. So, we have a small group of inspectors. We've got 4 air quality inspectors that manage the district, throughout the whole district, all air pollution sources. But we collect community concerns and complaints through 311. That's the main. That's definitely, if you see any buses idling, you guys are out there every day, and especially even for the folks at the zoo. We accept those complaints through 311, and when we get them, we do try to have inspectors, especially if it's a specific time of day or specific time that you're seeing these buses come in, we'll try and get an inspector to go out there around that time and do an inspection. And we do issue fine penalties, $500 fines. We send those out pretty often. That's a lot of what we do here in the Air Quality Division. The best way to reach us is definitely through 311. I know some folks don't like using 311 because you feel like, it takes forever for folks to respond. But we do try to do we do a 7-day, at least the maximum is 7 days to turnaround. But we try to get out there. I mean, even if we have an inspector out, we'll just try and get them out there the same day. But a lot of times we get out there and someone reported something in 311 and just maybe we'll see a bus idling. A lot of times the issue is we'll see buses idling and it might not be for our regulation, say 3 minutes, right? So sometimes we'll get out there and see, the bus is idling not quite 3 minutes. So in those cases, our inspector will try and go out there and just advise the bus driver of we saw the idling, if they can. Sometimes they'll drive off before we can say anything. But I know there's also a couple signs out there. Seems like it's not doing much, but the bus drivers at this point should be informed. So to address sort of the issues where we can't get out there fast enough, we are piloting the community enforcement program, which I've heard some of you saying that you're out there every day and you see these things and you might be standing out there already looking at it. So in those cases, we ask that you just take the pictures and send them to us. And so we ask that you actually use if you can use a timestamp app to take those pictures. And there's apps you can download for free, just to timestamp and so that way we can see exactly what
Tony, hey, excuse me, y'all.
Like, well, looks like someone's unmuted. So yeah. So the timestamp we use that to show that the vehicle was actually idling for 3 minutes. And then after, we get that information from you, which you'd still submit through the 311 app. And those pictures, we have some guidelines for those pictures on our website, and I can put that link in the chat so that everyone has it. But once we get those pictures in, we can use those to, we will send an affidavit to the person who, you do have to sign an affidavit saying, this is what I witnessed, just to, in case it does go forward to, to court or something, we might, we need to have something that shows that, this is what happened. So that's a process that we've been, we've had so far we've had about 15 successful cases with folks sending in us pictures to us and, going forward through with enforcement. So let's see. I see some, that's all I had. I'd open it up to questions. I do see some questions in the chat. Kathy, I will look into this. Do you know when you submitted it?
Hello, Hannah. How are you?
Oh,
Thank you
sorry.
very
Good,
much
how are you?
for acknowledging the question in chat.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
Kennedy Warren has, one resident. His name is Naiwa Dwan, and he is actually on the Transportation Committee of the ANC. And he has worked with our Building and Grounds Committee Chair, Chip Oat, and they have submitted several requests for assistance that doesn't necessarily all relate to the zoo. The problems we have had with this particular intersection certainly are intensified during heavy zoo times, but they extend to the nature of the intersection itself. But we have reached out through 311 according to NIWA repeatedly without any response.
Okay, I will note that. So for DOE, we have two service request types for DOE air quality, at least. One of them is the engine idling.
Exactly. Hannah, Hannah, I don't think it wouldn't have been you guys. I don't think we would have been trying DDOT or whatever. Good heavens, quite a storm out there. Okay, thank you.
Hannah, before we turn briefly over to MPD, being that you are aware of the situation, you now understand this situation, I would really like to see some of your inspectors out in the community and have this be a part of their tour of duty and have them be proactive. I think you would agree, and everybody on this call would agree, that calling 311 and having someone respond up, between 7 to 10 days is not realistic. Having people stand out there with time-stamped pictures, that's great, but DOE has inspectors. They're out there in the field every day. And if they were circling the zoo and having this be a part of their tour of duty every day to swing by in the morning, midday, in the afternoon, we potentially wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I'd really like DOE to step up to the plate. Now that they're aware that this is a constant, the zoo's traffic is going to increase from Memorial Day through Labor Day. So this is going to intensify, not diminish during the summer months. So if you could make that happen and you could remain our point of contact for this conversation, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. And do you mind if I ask Ms. Reba? So I'll just note that, we've had inspectors go out there a couple of times and, in the past couple of weeks since you brought this issue to our attention. And, during that time, there were a couple of instances of buses where they had been idling they'd observed them idling for maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes and had gone out and sort of talked to them and let them know, or they had driven away. So we hadn't identified any violations, but I just want to know if we're going at the right time of day. Like, would you say middle of day, afternoon, mornings, Well,
it does vary. It is in the morning between 9 and 8, 9, 10 when they first arrive, because obviously these tour groups come in shifts. You have those that come first thing in the morning. You have another group come in around lunchtime. You have some come in the afternoon. They're pretty much all gone by late afternoon in rush hour traffic. So it really is once the zoo opens up until around lunchtime and mid-afternoon.
Okay, great. No, that's very helpful for us. So yes, we definitely will have our inspectors, around and make that part of their tour duties.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little surprised to hear that they say that the buses have only been idling for a minute and most drive off, because I've walked up and down the corridor just to pace it, and I don't see buses move. I see them continuing to idle, and it's just very frustrating. So thank you. And thank you again for being here. Bo, Chairman Finley, I know we're pressed for time, but I'd like MPD to jump in briefly to see what they can do to help eradicate these issues with parking of buses at the zoo for extended period of times and idling, and seeing how they may be able to partner with the public safety team at the National Zoo. Maybe they can have, more conversations during these high volume months. And maybe the zoo, while they're patrolling the zoo and patrolling the safety of the perimeters of the zoo, if they see anything, that they may be a little more proactive as well and reach out to our MPD partners. So I don't know who's joining us here from MPD. I think I saw him earlier, but if you could unmute and join, I would appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here this evening. And I see you, Lieutenant Johnson, so thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Johnson from the 2nd District, PSA 204. That includes the zoo. And we just let you know, we do have people, officers dedicated to enforcing traffic from Calvert Street to above the 3,000 block of Connecticut past the zoo. And we do enforce the idling, the bus idling. Basically, if a bus is idling, if they're not actively unloading or loading passengers, then they're either stopped or they're idling. So if they're not loading, unloading, people not getting on, getting off, they're in violation. Either they're stopped or standing, you can't do that, and you can't idle. So we wrote a ticket today for idling for $500 for a bus on Connecticut Avenue. Also, there's no parking on Connecticut Avenue for buses. There's certain streets buses can't even drive down, like they can't drive down Macomb, Newark, Cathedral, Woodley. We ticket them for doing that. So we do enforce the traffic laws as far as buses in Connecticut Avenue almost on a daily basis. We have traffic enforcement from 8 a.m. to like 2 p.m. on Connecticut Avenue. But that's, depending on, crime, because we're law enforcement, we have to enforce crime first. So if assault comes out, major incident come out, we have to respond to that, that has priority. But daily, we try to enforce traffic from the 2600 block to the 3000 block of Connecticut, a little past that. And buses are an issue. We see them idling, we see them parked, allowed to park. I think parking is $1,000 for a bus on a meter. They can't do it at all. And they do it often. School buses do it also. We see school buses from Fairfax, they'll go in, they'll drop the kids off, park at a meter and go in with the kids and, tour the zoo. You can't do that. So, but unfortunately, we can't tow buses, unless it's a real emergency when they park like that. But we can ticket, and we do ticket. We also enforce, the turns, illegal turns, the cell phone violations. We run radar there also when we can. Today we wrote 2 tickets for speeding. We got 1 no permit there. We got 1 for no parking there just today. Today's stats. So we are aware of the National Zoo problem. We're trying to enforce as much as we can when we can. But island is real simple. And they can't stop. They can't stand. If you don't see kids getting on and getting off, then they're in violation.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Johnson. Commissioner Reba, do you want to wrap up? Have any closing remarks or questions for Lieutenant Johnson?
Well, I no, sir, but because again, I think it's a collective effort when you see buses actually sitting, and I have the photograph of a tour bus actually stopped in the crosswalk in front of the zoo on the west side of Connecticut heading southbound. And they were there for an extended period of time. But I would just like everybody on this call to realize that Memorial Day has begun. Summer season is begun. These issues are real. We're discussing it in real time. And now that all of our partners are aware of the situation, that Woodley Park, the National Zoo, is put on your radar again for this summer season, and that the zoo entrance still would remain and still be a part of your daily run. So Lieutenant Johnson, thank you for giving that update and sharing the ticketing and what you've been doing in recent days. That's good to hear. Not so much for those parties that have been ticketed, but it's good to hear that these issues are being addressed. And again, I just thank everyone for being here. And again, just be sure and include the National Zoo entrance as your regular tour of duty between now and Labor Day. If there's, Chair Finley, if there is any other commissioners that have any questions or particular questions to the lieutenant, I would suggest they have that opportunity now.
So I don't see any commissioners raise their hand. Commissioner McWood, did you have any questions? Okay, great. But I think we should open up to the public for the full panel. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I know there are a lot of folks sticking around, I think, for the next event as well. So the next item on the calendar, oh, Kathy, yes.
Yes, Bo and Bo Finley and Lee Bryan, Rebo, thank you very much for attention to the problems that we've got at the corner here between the Kennedy Warren's parking garage exit with its traffic light and less than half a block away the exit at North Road from the zoo. The accident to which Lee Bryan had earlier alluded took place after zoo hours, and it was the kind of accident that we fear on a daily basis here. We have about 12 seconds to exit our parking garage.
Kathy,
yes,
forgive me. You've started the next conversation, and
I see.
We were trying to end.
I see.
The current
Excuse me
conversation.
then.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me then.
This is
thank you for
a really great point, Kathy. Yeah, and I think I think the that accident was horrific, and it could have ended a lot worse for folks. And we stood out there and watched and saw a number of near misses just due to lack of visibility. And I think that we need to develop some solutions, not just ask for an assessment. I think we need to probably sit down and maybe kick it to our transportation committee to develop solutions, especially since NIWA's on there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So forgive me. I want to go back to Lieutenant Johnson for a second, because we are getting into the other conversation, and I just want to wrap up and close out this previous conversation. So Lieutenant Johnson, you indicated that your team has been out there ticketing. We all certainly understand that crime needs to be addressed first and foremost, and they could be pulled away from the zoo. But it sounded like that your team has been out there and they've been ticketing. So are they out there currently for because of this current conversation, or are they going to be out there starting now throughout the summer during the high season?
No, traffic enforcement out there. We have a traffic plan a daily traffic plan, and that Connecticut Avenue corridor is on it. So every day you see someone out there. Someone mentioned a blue Malibu. We have two unmarked, a blue Malibu and a silver, another silver Chevy that's out there. You might see unmarked too. So we have marked and unmarked vehicles out there enforcing traffic. And it's on a daily basis. But it's like you say, it's based on manpower and what's going on in the city at the time. Sometimes there's protests going on. We have to cover that, so when crime happens, we have to pull from traffic to address the crime.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And thank you, Kathy, for your patience. And Chair Finley, while we closed out that previous conversation. I don't think anybody would disagree, Kathy, that there are issues at that traffic light. One of the things that I wanted to address with DDOT at the top of this conversation is the traffic light at the Kennedy Warren garage entrance, as well as the National Zoo entrance, because I want to make sure, Kathy, that this is on the top of their list in terms of their evaluation of the corridor. I also want to make sure, Kathy, that you and BF Saul are a part of these community conversations that Cynthia mentioned at the top of this meeting tonight. I think it's going to be really critical that you and members of the Kennedy Warren are a part of that conversation. We as a community and they as DDOT really need to capture the concerns and issues that you have experienced over several months in the past few years with the timing of those lights. I think it's important for DDOT to have this information to be a part of their traffic calming measure evaluation, and have this be part of the conversation as Connecticut Avenue is re-imaged without the reversible lane. I really do feel that while the lights need to be checked out, and I do believe that we should probably have a traffic study at those two driveways since they are so close in proximity. I do believe that we can address this as we move forward with the DDOT plan, because part of that plan is to implement Vision Zero, right? And part of that is to evaluate all the intersections, right? And we all heard the presentation tonight in what they're trying to do and create up and down the corridor. So I want to hear from DDOT about this particular intersection, which is an intersection without a crosswalk, to see what they can do and how they plan to include it in this overall evaluation. Is that fair?
Absolutely, Brian, and thank you very much. By the way, I'm your point person for tonight, but we have a number of people who are engaged on this effort.
Okay, thank you. So Ed,
Thank you, Commissioner Reba.
I don't know, Ed, if you want to take this on, but I'd welcome you to join since you're the leader of the pack for the reversible lane traffic study.
Commissioner Reba, if I could make a suggestion, and this is totally up to you how you want to handle this, but in the interest of time, I'm wondering if you wanted this discussed at the Transportation Committee, where we could focus on it and perhaps develop a resolution on it. I think it might be better, but I'm just offering that time if you would like to use that time.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but everybody joined this evening for this purpose. I would not want them to be redirected to another meeting and pencil that in. I don't think this part of the conversation would take much longer. I don't think that it would take longer than 5 minutes, but I do want to hear from DDOT because, as Kathleen shared, that there are a number of people from the Kennedy Warren that joined us this evening, and there are some from the management company, and this was the purpose of tonight's meeting. So I'd like them to be able to finish and ask any questions they have, but I preface this conversation by indicating that there is a resolution to what we're speaking to tonight and discussing, because as DDOT goes through again, this holistic approach to the Connecticut Avenue corridor to look at the traffic calming measures. I think that what we're addressing at the moment will be addressed in their overall finding. So I really want to direct them not to our traffic meeting, but to the Connecticut Avenue meeting scheduled for next week, because that's where this will be addressed. I'm not opposed to a resolution, but Ed, I'd really like to hear from you as to the best approach to address this particular intersection where the Kennedy Warren and the National Zoo entrance and lighting, the light synchronization is an issue. Can this be a part of the broader conversation with the Connecticut Avenue reversible lanes study?
Yeah, I think, hi, everyone. I think, as I said, I'll get together with our design folks and Yvonne Thelwell and Guillerme and our team, and definitely come talk to us as we have the maps out next week. And we'll see if it's possible to incorporate some of these things into design operationally. So again, I think what you said, this is not really calming as such, but it's really the how the area works from an operation standpoint. So yeah, let's talk about it. And again, I'll get with folks, other folks in DDOT, and again, one other thing, and that's I definitely think it might be worthwhile to get together with the zoo and MPD and DOEE to maybe talk about, as you said, the bus issue together with all of our agencies in one room. So I look forward to that.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, Kathleen, are you comfortable with what we have shared this evening?
Yes, I did mention, I think that NIWA had submitted some testimony. Others here would be very well, very interested in doing so as well. We also submitted some photos of the accident. The only other comment that I would make is that this has been a chronic issue. It is certainly the danger that we have is that we have on zoo days up to 100 people per hour going by on the sidewalk. In addition, we do have visibility problems with regard to the buses, But the fact that the lights are basically, our light is about a 12-second light, and that we have so little visibility really creates a terrible danger at some points. And there is a north-south component to this also, about people going south thinking the light has gone red for them and will go red for those coming north, and it doesn't. That's, I think, part of what contributed to the accident we had. We need an overall DDOT assessment. So if you will help us to see how to get that done, that will be most appreciated, as have been all of your efforts up to this time. So thanks.
And in closing, Ed, would you kindly put the link?
Sorry, I had my hand up for a while. Sorry.
Okay, but real quick, Ed, could you put the link up for next week's meeting, for the community meeting? So Kathleen and others on this call can capture that information?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention, I highly recommend this all being discussed at the Transportation Committee or Transportation and Safety Committee meetings, which we've had these discussions before. If we're going to talk about one light at a full ANC commission meeting, that's a lot. So can we please, I know it's one more meeting, but that's the whole reason that it exists, is to have it in that more focused setting before it comes to these larger public meetings. The buses idling was a larger strip of Connecticut Avenue. And I get that this light is, unsafe. We've had these conversations, and we need to, have those discussions in the forum that they were set up for. The other thing that I would suggest is, maybe we form a task force for this particular element of this, to focus on that, because I know, yes, the Kennedy Warren has a ton of residents. There's a ton of residents in the big buildings, including my own, directly across the street from the Kennedy Warren, where we can, again, have a smaller group, more focused effort, really think through some solutions that we think would work before we take them to DDOT in this larger public forum. That would be my suggestion, because
Well, that's great, but DDOT's meeting is scheduled for next week. So getting this information out in the open to the public, it was critical in the timing of next week's meeting. So thank you for your suggestion. I did not see the link. Oh, there it goes. So Kathleen, if you could copy and paste that link, and you can disperse it throughout the Kennedy Warren and management, it would be critical that you attend one of those in-person or virtual meetings.
And those are informational meetings. They are not where
in the interest of time,
plans are presented. Well, I just want to be clear that they're informational meetings, and they're not, where we're looking at actual elements of projected or proposed solutions, just so that the public's aware and crystal clear on what is the expectation.
I don't think, I think if that was an issue, Ed would have mentioned that up front. So
Commissioners, let's move on to public questions for any of the panelists there, so we can move on to our next item. Folks, do you have any questions? If so, click the reactions button and choose raise hand. Give you a second to do that if you've got questions, and then we'll move on to our next item, which, let's see, is in Commissioner Fink's SMD. I see no questions. Okay, let's see. Okay, our next item. Thank you. Thank you, everybody from various district agencies and the National Zoo for joining us this evening. That was quite a lengthy discussion. I appreciate you sharing your information on that. And thank you, Commissioner Reba, for bringing the Kennedy Warren's concerns to us. Okay, so the next item is consideration of a resolution regarding, a presentation by Rooted Therapeutics with an expected ABRA application for medical marijuana dispensary. And we've got Christina Johnson here from Rooted Therapeutics, who is going to do a brief presentation. Commissioner Pagets, could you make Ms. Johnson a co-host so she can share? Okay, don't know.
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the names jumped around for a second. Christine Johnson.
Commissioner Paget, I'll go ahead and just raise my hand so that you can see me easily.
Yeah, that's what bumped you to the top. I almost had you.
Okay, sorry
All
about
right,
that.
you should be good now.
Here I was trying to help.
No worries.
Okay, let me go ahead and try to share my screen now. Let's see. Am I visible?
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
excellent. So good evening, everyone. That was a really hearty discussion, and I know that my time has been cut from 10 minutes to 5. So essentially, I'm coming before you all this evening because I'd like support for the medical dispensary license that I am pursuing before ABRA at this time. ANC support on our application out of 250 points is actually worth 30 points, so it is significant. There are 2 things that actually ABRA will ask you all to consider, which is the impact on the location as a business, and then also they will ask you about the concentration, like whether or not there are too many of these in the area. To just start off with, there are no legal cannabis dispensaries in the area, nor are there any medical cannabis dispensaries in the area. So I'll just get started. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, the company, a little background there, and then I'm going to kind of breeze through most of the presentation in the interest of time, and then talk about why Ward 3 and our facility specifically. So essentially, Rooted Therapeutics is a privately held woman-owned business. I've got a lot of fancy certifications and things, but I am a DC native. I went to high school at Georgetown Visitation, grew up in the region. About 5 years ago, started a medical cannabis company and worked extremely hard to pursue licensure in Maryland. I am now the only African-American and Latina in the United States to have a cultivation license where we actually grow medical cannabis in our facilities, and then am currently in pursuit of a retail license in the district. Prior to that, worked with Conscious Capitalism and was the executive director of that organization. And therefore, all of my corporate values or company's values are very consistent with sort of a conscious mindset, including having purpose-driven profits, being authentic, having positive community impact, conscious cultivation, servant leadership, and then universal respect. Wanted to stick to having local investment partners, and if not local, trying to pursue individuals who could invest that had sort of a history in the district. Some of you all may know Chris Weber. He actually played here for a few years with the Wizards. He is a former NBA player and has a very large impact fund in the cannabis space, directing most of the investments towards equity applicants or minority applicants, brown and Black applicants across the United States who are pursuing licensure in the medical cannabis space. Going to go to my partners here actually in DC and at one point in Maryland as well. Cookies is a nationally recognized brand. So what I really wanted to work on in building this company and operationalizing it was having operational partners that had already been in this space. Cookies is a brand that exists in 7 states and has basically garnered support from not only its clients, but also from legislators because of their social equity programs. And so they will be my operational partners here in the district if awarded licensure. And then I also am very familiar with the Khan family. They are joining my pursuit of licensure as an advisory partner. The Khan family owns Tacoma Wellness, a trusted brand, established brand, extraordinarily responsible. They serve about 250 clients daily, so they are steeped in experience, and their sales represent about 40% of the total cannabis sales in the district's medical cannabis market, which is fairly significant. To be frank, many of the residents in Ward 3 are actually going to Ward 4 to purchase their medical cannabis products at this time because none exist in Ward 3. So why Ward 3? I thought that there was a diversity of surrounding businesses and retailers, which I thought was fascinating. It would attract a wide variety of clientele and patients to the facility. I knew that we have strong local leadership and a community network. So the fabric of sort of being business friendly was already there. Many thanks to the Main Streets program, because they've been extraordinarily supportive up until this point. Obviously, there's metro access and proximity to major roads and thoroughfares across the city, naturally beautiful surroundings. You all already are familiar with the local aesthetic. And then there again is no existing medical cannabis retailer, which is critical. A lot of my mother's friends, I'm not sure what just happened, but they actually live in this ward and they have to go well across the city to get access to the products that they're interested in. Let me drop that back down. I also found I've participated in a few of the Ward 3 meetings, the ANC meetings. I think that there is a real commitment to aging in place. A good percentage of Tacoma Wellness's clients are actually over 50 years old, and those people are seeking medical treatment for pain management and a variety of other conditions that I think, quite frankly, should be able to be serviced in Ward 3. So we've got a timeline here that basically outlines sort of when the approvals will come through, but there are a few, I think, considerations that many of you may have questions about, and I just wanted to kind of get ahead of those a little bit and sharing about our thinking for transportation in the area. We obviously will encourage the use of walking and public transportation to reduce traffic congestion, which we just heard quite a bit about and we know is an issue. We've also got a really strong commitment to reducing the CO2 footprint. And in our building, you'll see some things related to that. We also are going to issue loyalty discounts for people and incentives for people who actually don't drive. We will have bike racks in front of the building and behind the building. Obviously, it's metro accessible. And then we are also going to have valet in the rear of the building. And we've started talking to local parking garages at the hotels to accommodate that. Conversations are going well. It's just a function of getting licensed and standing that up. We will eat the cost of that. It will be just a benefit to our patients. Our hours of operation and construction are down below at this point. We will primarily try to, construct the facilities, if we are approved and supported, between 9 and 6 p.m. So 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Though obviously we would do so according to DCRA's legal construction hours. And then the hours of operation are there as well. A big concern of residents quite often when moving into new jurisdictions is how this could affect children. And we are extraordinarily sensitive to that. I've got a 13-year-old myself. Obviously, the location that I've identified, which I'll share a little bit about on the next slide, it is 2614 Connecticut Avenue. It's not within 500 feet of a school per the DC statute. We cannot and will not market to minors. We will not have any suggestive imagery or language. We've obviously will have appropriate medical cannabis labeling per DC statute. We've already designed it, submitted that to ABRA as well for review. No minors will be allowed within the controlled dispensary space. And I'll give you all a sample look into what that is and the designations, because I've already gone through sort of architectural renderings and created those. And then we obviously will have child and tamper-proof packaging. This is a picture of the front of the dispensary. If you all are familiar with the area, this space that I'm highlighting here is actually just a nice green wall with what we tried to put up next to, Gina's space, which is the Ace Hardware, which would be just to our right if you're looking at the building. This obviously is a DC map. We'll go into the inside of the space. This would be the renderings for the inside of the space. We've got a counter that you can pull up to if you are in a wheelchair. You can't really see it so well right there, but the counter size is dropped, and this is a waiting area. This is a secured space in so much as we've got cameras, but that is not where the dispensing will happen. Again, this is the inside of the facility. If you go through the doors, this is what you'll be looking at. This is actually, these are shelves for cannabis products here and here as well. We'll have a variety of ways in which you can learn about the product. here you can have a touch screen, but we'll also have representatives here talking to individuals with questions. This is just a small juice bar while people wait. My mother, I will have you all know, insisted that there be chairs at the front of the facility with either tea or drinks for her, obviously not alcoholic, but that was her desire for her and her friends. Several of her leadership Greater Washington classmates said they want to be able to sit down because their joints ache. And so that's in there to accommodate some of our more, I would say, seasoned community members. And then this is actually a rendering of the store. It's hard because this is an architectural rendering, so I can't size it just right for this page, but this is what I've showed you coming in. This space in the red is actually the controlled space. That is space where you cannot have children in that space. You have to show here at the front desk and at check-in your ID and medical card in order to gain entry, of course. And there's a consultation room, a restroom here. There are stairs downstairs. If you just will humor me for one more moment, I wanted to show you all that we will have another controlled space here, but the stairs will go right past that. We will have a break room for staff, but what we've also decided to do is include a wellness or education center. What I've found over the last 5 years in working with community members across the region, quite frankly, is that there is a lot of misinformation out there about wellness and how cannabis can play a part in wellness. And so the point of having this space was to allow community members to come in, and we will host courses to educate people about cannabis use, the safe use of cannabis products, and then where people need to be more mindful and a little bit more sensitive to how it can affect them beyond just the, the cannabinoids that we're familiar with, which is THC and CBD. There are actually 130 plus cannabinoids. So in this space, we're going to do some community teaching there. We have partnered with a variety of community organizations. We're working with Howard. We're working with Anne Arundel Community College that has a full cannabis program, business program, as well as cannabis clinician program. And then a ton of other, like Veterans 22 Initiative, 2 very large associations for patients. And then I just was recently appointed to the U.S. Cannabis Council, which is the largest council for cannabis MSOs or multi-state operators in the United States of America. This space just shows you that essentially our access points are all covered with video recording 24 hours a day. Again, I think this does the same, but this is for the patios on the back as well as outside. This area back here will not be open to the public. Rather, this is just an outdoor space for employees. At this point, the front space will be where people can enter into our location. And then that is really the end. This is just a picture of the, excuse me, the lighted signs. I understand that is sometimes a concern, but look, this is not going to be a spotlight that is offensive to neighbors. We want it to be tasteful, and we hope that the design is one that you all can be supportive of. If there are any questions, I think, Bo, I'm probably out of my 5 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that I was
a little bit.
Yeah, what is there? And I'm happy to take questions at this time.
Yeah. Well, so commissioners, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'll start. First, thank you for this great presentation. This is one of the most comprehensive, complete presentations I've seen since I've been on ANC. I haven't been here that long, but that was fantastic. Your story is incredibly inspiring, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for considering our community for this work. The particular things I appreciated was how you thought about all the things that the community would think about, and your transportation plan was very well done. I appreciated you thinking about like public transit and bicycling. And then finally, I also appreciated the educational aspect, right? Like, I think this is, you're providing the community with something really good. And obviously, like, this is not my SMD, it's Commissioner Fink's SMD, and we have to wait and see what the community thinks. But I really appreciate you coming out and giving this really, really wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it. And just so you all know, I actually did reach out to Jason approximately 7 times. I haven't heard back from him since February. but I have been able to speak with some of our other commissioners and do look forward to addressing any questions that anyone has. I think Commissioner Reba has his hand up and I
Yeah,
want
we've got, let's go with Commissioner, we haven't heard from Commissioner McWood in a while, so we'll go Commissioner
Yeah.
McWood, then Commissioner Reba.
Sure.
I'll make this very, very quick. When are we, is there an application that has been filed, Ms. Johnson? I'm just wondering when we're going to be considering this.
Yes.
I gather it's an ABRA application.
It is, and thank you for the question. The ABRA application was filed several hundreds of pages. It was filed March 28th. We were supposed to be notified, meaning the applicants were supposed to be notified of having been shortlisted 2 weeks ago. We have not been notified by ABRA. However, I do understand that ABRA will be distributing something on Friday that says, we are so sorry for the inconvenience, but our timeline has been bumped and you all as applicants will be notified July 25th of being shortlisted. From there, my understanding is that July 29th, ANCs will be place carded. So I could be off with the timeline because again, we haven't been notified, but that is what my insiders have shared with me.
Okay, and was this application in response to like a request for proposal?
Yes, ma'am. In April of last year, we were asked to put forth an LOI that demonstrated our interest in pursuing licensure. And then the actual application dropped in November of last year.
Okay. And does the Department of Health also play a role in this, or is it all ABRA?
It's all ABRA at this point in terms of facilitating the application process. However, aspects of the application, of that 300-page application that we submitted, will go to various departments within the district to review it. So for instance, environmental the Department of Environment will look at our environmental impact. Department of Health will look at our packaging to ensure that it's consistent with the regs and things of that nature.
Okay, I won't take up any more time at the meeting because I think we'll talk at a later point as well. Thank you.
Well, indeed. Thank you, Commissioner McWood. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Commissioner Reba.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner McWood, for those questions, because one of the questions that I had was when were we going to see the application itself? Obviously, it needs to be reviewed. I wanted to ask a question to you, Ms. Johnson, via Commissioner McWood, because being that we'd be converting a restaurant into a business, isn't that going to impact the commercial overlay regulations?
No.
No?
No, the commercial overlay doesn't exist any longer. It was the new zoning was approved with the zoning rewrite a couple of years ago. So we can talk about that offline, but no, that shouldn't have any impact.
Okay, I wasn't sure and I didn't remember, so thank you for that. But Ms. Johnson, I'm just curious. So first of all, thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
And thank you for the thoroughness of the presentation.
Sure.
The design and the aesthetics, it looks top notch and it looks beautifully executed, and the renderings are really on point in terms of what you were trying to share with us this evening. I just have a question, and I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause a lot of your clients are obviously coming for services because they're in pain, right? Some of them are coming because there's been an injury, right? So I'm just curious, how come you weren't looking at Cathedral Commons or a Park and Shop in Cleveland Park where there's parking, where these individuals who are in need of your services, who are in pain, how are they going to arrive to your location since parking is such an issue at this close intersection of Connecticut and Calvert?
That is a great question. And it's not quite as simple as I'd like it to be, but I'm going to try to answer it as succinctly as possible. The cannabis space is at the federal level, obviously illegal. At the state level, it is legal in more than 30 states for both medicinal and adult use. In the District of Columbia, when pursuing licensure, you actually have to secure your site. So I had to rent the site or purchase the site in order to pursue licensure, which is that is a very significant requirement for licensure. And what I would say is that I called on more than 30 landlords to actually rent from. If the landlord does not own their space outright and they have a loan on their property that is FDIC insured, they are not able to rent to a cannabis operator. That knocked off a significant number of individuals. Now, some of them were owned by like family offices, but they did not want the challenges that come along with cannabis operators, not limited to, they could lose their license at any time if the district decides to change their regs, which the district is known for doing. Frankly, the cannabis regs changed 10 days before we submitted our application, thanks to one of our council members. And it affected all of the applicants. So I think that it is a multi-layered response. I would love to be in a place that has parking available. That was not available to me. And we did do our due diligence in pursuing that option.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing the application and good luck with next steps.
Thank you very
Thank you
much
for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Commissioner Baggett?
Yeah, I mean, with those rules and regulations, I really appreciate you and applaud you for going through those hoops. And actually, cannabis distributor operators are one of the most loyal and responsible tenants a landlord and building owner in neighborhood could find, because you are this close all the time to getting an infraction that loses your business, and I welcome that kind of community, that kind of caring, that and starting something and making that investment and that commitment. It is to be applauded, and I appreciate it. And I welcome you in the neighborhood and hope that you serve the needs of many of the residents of the community. So thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. Commissioner Finley, do I have a moment just to quickly respond to the question that came in by way of chat?
I did not see that question, but please do, and please read the question too.
Sure. Janine W. asked, is there any connection to Canna Infused Treats at 2610 Connecticut Avenue Northwest? Two things I'll say to that. The simple answer is no, they are illegal operators. The less simple and slightly more complicated answer is that there are only 7 legal medicinal cannabis operators in the district. There are no adult use operators in the district. There is legislation called I-71 or I-70 basically, under which you can gift a very small percentage of flour to a friend, family member, etc. There are several businesses that are exploiting that and operating without legal approval to do so in the district. They are unregulated. They do not pay taxes. They provide no benefit to the district. They are dangerous because they also do not meet the security requirements of the facility. Their products are untested, which means you could be putting anything in your body. And as an operator, my hope is to get into the market and basically advocate, if not lobby, to get those types of facilities shut down. They're a danger to our community, and I'm not comfortable with them being operational. So that's my simple answer. And I appreciate the question.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody in the community, do you have questions? If so, please click the reactions button and choose raise hand. All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. I guess we'll see you perhaps next month.
Sure. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, and that concludes commission business for the evening. We move to other business. Secretary Rebo, would you be up for sharing the secretary's report?
I am. I was trying to ensure that I didn't miss any emails regarding the draft minutes. So I guess I would respectfully ask any commissioners that had tweaks Commissioner Siddiqui, I may have missed it, but I looked for the questions that I asked you. I didn't see an email. I don't know if you had time today, but
Yeah.
what I'd like to do is, Chair Finley, is that we pass the minutes and I move the minutes, and with the stipulation that there are some tweaks that needed to be addressed. So I'll lean on you to see how you want to move that, because obviously any tweaks that were needed were not done. So, and again, I didn't see Commissioner Siddiqui's response to my question. So
Let's tee that up first. Commissioner Siddiqui, do you have a response to Commissioner?
Yeah, it's going to be very quick, and Commissioner Reba had emailed you, but that's fine. There's just very quick. Eric Teran is the architect, because you had a question about who he was. So he was the architect, and Zachary Burt is with the.
Wait a second, because I'm listening, but so the architect was who?
Eric Teran.
Oh, that was Eric. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other?
Zachary Burt was with the DC Preservation League.
DC Preservation League. Okay.
And represented the applicant, which was the DC Preservation League.
Okay. Represented. Okay. There was also a question regarding, and Commissioner McWood, if you wanted to address your question, I saw your email, but I also saw a response.
Yeah, I wasn't quite, Rachel responded and I wasn't quite clear. I know we had 2 roll call votes at last month's meeting, and only one of them was represented in the draft minutes.
Oh, this is Rachel. I don't have anything else in the notes for another roll call vote. I did, because I normally take the roll call vote. I only had the one.
Huh.
Do you have a specific one that was a roll call?
Yes, I would have to go back to my notes, Rachel, of the meeting last month.
Because I think
they were both votes that where the action was approved, but in one of them I recall I abstained, and in the other one I think I voted for it. Does anyone else who was at the meeting last month remember this?
I was a
Commissioner
little
McWood.
busy the past month.
I mean, we can go back and look at the recording, but Commissioner McWood, there definitely was a roll call vote on the Uptown application, and you voted yes for it.
Yes.
And then I don't think there was a roll call vote on the emergency barrier thing.
I think there was, and maybe it was on the friendly amendment.
No,
but yeah, that doesn't.
I mean, we can. There's no treasurer need to approve the minutes this meeting, so we can also just wait till next meeting and watch the video and stuff if we need to.
What we can also do is you're allowed to, Pat Robert's rules allows for this, where if the minutes have a factual or grammatical error, they can be corrected later without a further discussion.
They can be corrected administratively?
Yes, if there's a factual error to them.
The votes recorded correctly.
Yeah,
right?
The vote should be, I mean, all we have to do is review the meeting recording. Okay.
And
okay, we can do that.
Chair Finley, that's why I made the recommendation at top, because I was, as everybody knows, I was not at the May meeting. So I can't speak to the roll calls. So if you're comfortable with me moving the minutes, with making the factual changes afterwards based on Robert's rules, I'm happy to move the May 16th public meeting of the ANC.
That works for me, seconded. Or if somebody else wants to second too, go.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Siddiqui. Okay, so yeah, all those in favor of Secretary Reba's minutes with the opportunity to amend factual errors, if there are any, I doubt it, but great. Okay, and all those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, so that passes. Great. Now, Treasurer Siddiqui, it's time for your report.
Yes, there was one expenditure. This is our administrator's, Rachel Worsham's May salary. It was 20 hours of work and a check for $503.10. And that was the only expenditure. And I will have a quarterly financial report before our next meeting.
Great. And so you have nothing to move or?
Nothing to move.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, now we'll move to the always exciting single member district reports. Commissioner Reba, do you want to kick us off?
Well, I think that part of my report is to note that we did have a discussion regarding the issues of idling buses this evening, as well as a hearty discussion regarding addressing the traffic light synchronization at the zoo and the Kennedy Warren, and that we had all of the team members here today from the corresponding partners with DC agencies, as well as the National Zoo, and that I look forward to this discussion to be continued, not only with our partners. Part of this tonight was to bring everybody together, and as we know, when you have discussions like this, typically resolutions are not necessary because everybody's at the table, everybody's on the same playing field. And with the impending DDOT conversation next week, I think we're on a track to bring resolution to both matters, which I'm very pleased to share. And I'll continue to be working closely with Kennedy Warren, BSOL Management, and the residents at the Kennedy Warren to ensure that their message is not only passed along, but addressed and a part of the continuing conversation. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the mayor's team. I wanted to give a shout out to Amir and to his new Ward 3 Moker colleague, Theo, who were both present at our walkthrough, Bo, when we met with the Kennedy Warren. And I want to thank them for their efforts and thank them for obviously being here again tonight. So thank you both.
And a big welcome to Theo to the Moker job in Ward 3. So let's see. Looks like Commissioner Pagets, you would be up next.
Cool. No, I also want to thank Commissioner Reba and Commissioner McWood for actioning my email to them about the buses idling and you know, actioning all the folks that they got in the room today, because they are currently serving as the Zoo Advisory Commissioner representatives for 3C. So that's who I reached out to help get the cats herded and ducks in a row. So thank you. I want to, if Robert Maines is still on the line there, the Woodley Park pop-up went awesome. So if he wants to say a few words about that and participating in art all night in the district-wide program in September, I'm really looking forward to it. I really enjoyed what I saw down there and appreciate his efforts. So Robert, I'll cede my time to you if you want to give some brief remarks. If not, job well done.
Thanks. I hope that the microphone is working. This is always a bit of a question on these. Wonderful. We had about 30 vendors in Woodley Park. We've never had a pop-up there before. And the idea was to sort of activate the neighborhood, to draw both residents into the neighborhood, to offer them a little bit more of a dynamic place to do their shopping, and to attract people from other neighborhoods. It was a hellish regulatory process to go through. We had to secure signatures from 75% of businesses and 75% of residents within a certain area of the market. That took me the better part of a month. And then there was the 9 regulatory agencies that all had to clear on the permits. That said, we did this as a dry run for Art All Night, as Commissioner Pagets was saying. So September 24th, we'll be having Art All Night in Woodley Park for the first time. And I'm talking to different partners about doing things both in the north corridor and in the south corridor, starting with a sort of family and kids event and then moving down to music and a festival in the southern corridor. So this was a bit of a dry run for that. All the vendors were extremely happy. In fact, one vendor told me I could double the price, which I will be holding her to. We had all of the vendors asking people what they thought of the market, and those reactions were extremely positive. In fact, a lot of people mentioned that they'd like to see these on a weekly basis, at which point I coughed very loudly and thanked for the compliment, but I think quarterly or perhaps if we stretch it bi-monthly is a more realistic thing to do. But we'll be assessing that now. I'm talking to all the different businesses and the vendors and the number of visitors to get their feedback, and then I'll inform everyone going forward.
Yeah, job well done, and also congratulations on the improved uptick in filling that vacancy rate down there. So some exciting stuff coming to the Woodley Park Main Street area. Really, really applaud your effort. It's Herculean, and thank you for bringing that to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner Pagets. Thank you, Robert. So I'll do the 3C04 update and then kick it over to Cassandra Hetherington for a little update on there's been a couple of events that have happened in the neighborhood thanks to her hard work. But the main issue I already brought up, which is the intersection of Porter and Connecticut and the lack of traffic markers making it unsafe for pedestrians, unsafe for drivers, unsafe for cyclists. So that's the main thing I'd like to get addressed right now. We've had a number of cars seemingly abandoned on Quebec Street, and I'm working on that too. But yeah, so I'll kick it over to Cassandra if she's willing.
Hi, Bo. Thank you. Well, we had some smaller events in Cleveland Park. We celebrated the kickoff of the massive DDOT streetscape and construction project with Construction Fest. I see Robert's got handy pandy. So 25% of the businesses currently have a cute little construction panda decal in their window. We had 11 businesses participate in holding Friday music over the course of 3 separate Fridays. Very eclectic bands ranging from someone playing with a toothbrush inside Chase Bank to a bluesgrass band all fired up. So that was, I thought it was a huge success. A lot of people were out in the corridor of those 3 Fridays. We had Cleveland Park Main Street was on ABC News morning program talking about Construction Fest and just the need to support small businesses anytime, but also particularly during, end of a pandemic and the beginning of construction. Rumor has it that person was wearing a panda costume on the news. And we ended the construction phase, sort of like the initial phase of Construction Fest with a really fun bar crawl on Saturday night. And all of the bars that participated were quite pleased. We're not participating in Arnold Night this year because who knows what's going to happen and what's going to be ripped up in September. But something I really want to do next year when the construction is over. But I would like to do something smaller and just maybe 1 or 2 activities or events and really try to, continue to bring people to the corridors. And with the service lane closed, vendor pop-ups are definitely an option. I don't think I have to jump through as many hoops as Robert did in terms of getting permission to close anything. So yeah, just stay tuned for more exciting things and lots of handy pandy. So thank you.
Just in case it wasn't clear, and Cassandra wasn't clear, she was dressed as a panda in her interview in a construction vest. Thank you again, Cassandra, for all your hard work. Commissioner Siddiqui.
Yeah, that wasn't clear. Thanks for clarifying that. So 3C05, the Hearst pool opened on Memorial Day weekend, and seemed a lot of people have been enjoying that pool. However, with the pool has come issues that have been pointed out before. There's peeling paint already around sort of the area. There's a lot of trash that was filling up, and Amir actually helped quite a bit. So Amir, thank you for that. In making sure that some of the trash was picked up. There's some open trash bins as well that was resolved. So if the community hears anything else about Hearst Park and Pool, please let me know. I'm happy to help. And yeah, and then Cassandra, thank you for organizing Uptown Shuffle and everything else. I think we had a fun, oh yeah, Uptown Shuffle. So yeah, so Uptown Shuffle happened. You know, thanks for organizing that, and thanks for all the other events that you did. It was a nice, fun month. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Siddiqui. Let's see, who do we have left? Oh my goodness, Commissioner
Hey.
McWood. Yeah,
Yep,
we're
just
missing
me.
some folks.
I'll keep this short because I know it's been a long meeting. I wanted to announce that John Eaton has a new principal, Principal Eske, who was the unanimous recommendation of the community advisory group that interviewed all the candidates. So everyone's very excited that he was chosen by DCPS and that he accepted. And then I just want to alert everyone, I'm going to be offering a resolution next month. This is also in relation to John Eaton, and I'll probably circulate it in a few days, actually. It's in response to longstanding efforts by the school community to improve pedestrian and student safety. School has always really encouraged students and parents to bike or walk to school, and as part of that, they've been trying to ensure that the kids have safe routes to schools. And long story short, DDOT had them work with a consultant on documenting recommendations. They submitted it almost a year ago. And DDOT's response to it was that they ought to submit individual 311 requests. Now, I don't know what the rest of your experience is with 311, but I find it very uneven. And 3 requests that I put in after car accidents in the vicinity of the school last winter. The response that I got from the requests, and I actually talked to somebody with each request that I submitted, is that they would get to it in March of 2023. And I just find that unacceptable. So the resolution is going to be asking DDOT to respond with some urgency to the safety requests that the school has made in conjunction with the DDOT consultant, but also to reform the process by which they respond to schools in particular when they submit safety requests having to do with roadways and sidewalks. So that will be coming. So that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner McWood. We've reached the end of other business. That means it's time for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? All right. Thank you all. Have a great night and see you next week.